Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and today we are talking Alleria, Light and Shadow, the completely new style of cinematic that Blizzard bestowed upon us last night. And this is my cinematic analysis, but it's not like your usual Taliesin cinematic analysis, mostly because, like I say, this dropped last night, and today we're taking the kids away camping for the weekend. Hey, that's just parent things. That's just how it goes sometimes. So I'm fresh out the shower. The car is packed. You might better hear the kids screaming downstairs as I record this intro. And as such, I haven't been able to sit down, watch the cinematic like hundreds of times, really marinate on it for a day, write a beautifully structured script, which is what my cinematic analysis usually are, right? But I did not forget about you, Internet. I wouldn't leave you wanting for an analysis. So when this cinematic launched last night, I jumped onto stream and I watched it with my stream fam and we talked about it a lot, and then I recorded a cinematic analysis on stream. So obviously it is a bit more freeform than we'd be used to, and you know, it's not how we're going to do cinematic analysis in the future, but it was really fun and I think we got some really interesting insights as well. The TLDR is that we see Alleria basically becoming the warrior of shadow that she is at the beginning of War Within. So sitting by a fire in Argus just after the Harbinger quests that we took part with her in 10.2.7, looking into a fire and considering how she associates the light with pain, with the pain of sacrifice, as she puts it, and remembers 3 of those sacrifices throughout her life, all of which involve the abandonment of family members. And as she does so, she kind of leaves those memories by the fire, representing her old self. So the quiver representing her memories of Sylvanas, and how when Alleria abandoned her post as Ranger General to join the Alliance and take the fight to the orcs in the Second War, in doing so, she condemned Sylvanas to take her place and face the coming dangers in her stead, including, of course, the Lich King. The hood representing the memories of her son, Arator, and how she abandoned him when she and the other sons of Lothar went through the Dark Portal. We see him clutching tightly onto the hood as she passes him over to her sister Verisa. And as we see her third traumatic memory, that of turning her back on her husband to follow the path of the void, we see that the embers of the fire representing her old self, those memories that keep her who she is, that pain that defines her and maybe in her mind holds her back, is now just a glowing ember which she doesn't even face, turning instead completely into the shadow. So you could read this cinematic really as her leaving aside her past trauma, but also her past connections, almost dehumanizing to a certain degree, and becoming a more ruthless, unburdened warrior, which she is convinced the world needs right now. Anyway, we're going to talk about it bit by bit as usual. So big spoilers, let's talk about Alleria, Light and Shadow. Okay, go, 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 go. I thought that was really interesting. Obviously, the most striking thing about it is the animation style and how evocative that is of, I mean, I'm always going to call it like the Saturday morning animation style. You know, I know you see it kind of like everywhere on Netflix and stuff at the moment, but for me, it always just suggests Saturday morning kids TV shows, the original D&D, like what I call, and not everyone agrees with me on this, but what I always call like American style anime, you know? Back in the 80s, American studios were making cartoons and Japanese animation studios were very cheap. So they would hire Japanese animation studios to do the animation, and obviously they did it in a very Japanese style. So you get all of these cartoons like Thundercats, He-Man, that have like this incredibly Ulysses is another good one, Gargoyles a bit later on, that have like these very dynamic kind of movements and camera angles that you weren't used to in Western cartoons at the time, and it's always very evocative to me of that. And yeah, you're seeing that in the cartoons that Critical Role are putting out at the moment, and the Castlevania cartoons. Loads of Netflix animations are doing this at the moment. And both of those are like perfect for World of Warcraft, right? I think. I saw a lot of conjecture in the chat as this cinematic was happening, as to whether it was the same people that make the Critical Role one that do this. There might be a team involved, but as far as I'm aware, it's in-house.
When we are young, we are taught to revere the light.
It looks like she's out in like Legion-y stuff here. Looks like Argus or Legion stuff, or Eradath even. Yeah. So I guess we'll have a look. I guess we'll try and work it out.
Light. But when I turn to it, see only fire. The fire of pain, of loss, the choices I made.
Okay, so there's a lot of repeating of themes and stuff in this. Throughout it, she keeps asking herself questions, rhetorical questions, wondering if she'd do things different. And she's setting up the holding form here of pain.
Quel'Thalas, home. Until the Horde threatened everything.
That's good. Always good to see that.
Until the Horde threatened everything.
Oh, maybe it's okay. I thought it was ears, but it's teeth. It's just a troll head. Sorry, just a troll head.
My family was sworn to protect it.
Did you see the way the burning torches here outside the city? Did you see the way that they all appeared behind the orcs on the table? See where the orcs are? And like we're seeing the city gates on the map here. Yeah, interrupting the king's D&D game, yeah, for sure. And then all of the fires appear where the orcs are standing on the table. Very cute.
My family was sworn to protect it.
This troll here is a recreation of the very famous Chris Metzen troll from the Warcraft 2 menu screen. There we are. I thought it was the instruction booklet. It shows what I know. That's that dude there, clearly. Love that shit.
And protect it we did.
This poor troll. I feel sorry for this troll here.
Did.
Look, he's so upset. He's so upset. And he's got a broken tooth. Which means he survived a broken tooth, which makes him more robust than Vol'jin. Vol'jin broke a tooth. He was a goner, man. He was dead. This guy broke a tooth. He's still fighting. Just saying. So when I saw this shot in the preview, I speculated that it was maybe recreating the bit in the Sylvanas book where Alleria does her ranger trials and she's about to fail, and because, you know, she gets herself in over her head with like a bear, I think, and Sylvanas comes to her rescue and all of that. But clearly not. Clearly it's just a cool fighting maneuver, and I love that. I like how she's using her spiky bow as a club. We'll see that again later on as well. This is just cool action shit, and I appreciate that. Just cool American anime action shit. I mean, does this mean that did she just swap spec into survival like midway through?
When Sylvanas and I fought together, we fought as one.
Like some proper Avengers camera spinning around shit here, which I think is really good. And, you know, like the Avengers, they're always like back to back, right? They've got each other's back. It's very symbolic of sisterhood and, you know, loyalty. Like two sides of the same coin sort of thing, working yin and yang in parallel. Yeah, don't forget, Hunters can equip everything. Will they fight together again, defending the gates of Quel'Thalas? Do you know what? It feels like it's pretty likely, doesn't it? Midnight has got Sylvanas written all over it. It's got the ultimate Sylvanas redemption written all over it. Nothing would be a better full circling of her story than coming back to defend Quel'Thalas, right? You know, it was defending Quel'Thalas against Arthas, where she got turned into the Banshee in the first place and had to do like hideous things outside of her will because she was being controlled, to then have performed a grand redemption in the Moor, to have rescued the souls of the Night Elves from the Moor, which is what she's doing at the moment, and then to come back and defend Quel'Thalas again against the Void this time, and obviously sacrifice herself in the process, right? Die forever in the process. I mean, that's obviously, I couldn't, if there was one story beat in the entire World Soul Saga that I was convinced of, it would be that. You know, it's not like she's going to live happily or anything like that, but she gets a noble death at least, which would be pretty cool. Oh, that's a great shot where their heads both come up at once there. That's so cool. Now, obviously, it's, you know, when lots of people saw this in the little trailer, this shot here, A lot of people thought this was gonna be Teldrassil. And it is obviously intended to be suggestive of Teldrassil. It's foreshadowing. That poor meeting stone. Now they'll have to run to that dungeon.
But the conflict here was growing. Pulling my sister and...
This is also kind of foreshadowing Sylvanas defending against Arthas. There's lots of like running over bridges and hiding in trees and stuff when you are Arthas in Warcraft 3 chasing after Sylvanas. And obviously the burning of bridges is kind of what this whole cinematic is about, right?
Die apart.
And obviously a burning tree cannot help, you know, in this situation. We've just seen catapults, which are very suggestive of the burning of Teldrassil, and you can't not think of that. So Alleria's on this side. She pushes Sylvanas, and the bridge is destroyed. It's almost like this is where their paths diverge, you know? And obviously the bridge is destroyed between them. And they're going in their separate directions. If you really wanted to get wanky about it, if you really wanted to get GCSE English literature about it, you could say that Alleria doesn't only choose her own path, but by walking away from her role as Ranger General and making Sylvanas take up the mantle as Ranger General, she is also deciding Sylvanas' fate, because it's as Ranger General that Sylvanas gets killed and raised by Arthas, an event which eventually leads her towards the burning of Teldrassil and the moment of no return for her. And she is physically pushing Sylvanas towards the burning tree here. She's saving both of their lives, right? She's not putting Sylvanas in danger here. She's saving Sylvanas from danger. But symbolically, physically, you know, she is pushing Sylvanas literally towards the burning tree. It's kind of symbolic of how this decision that she's about to make doesn't just, you know, lay out her own path for her. It lays out Sylvanas' path for her, which does eventually lead to the burning of Teldrassil, a big burning tree. That does sound really wanky and English literature GCSE class, but I would be very surprised if it wasn't intentional. People like to kind of make jokes about, like, people talk about the color of the curtains or whatever, and it's such bullshit. It's like, no, if the author told you the color of the curtains, it is important, actually. It does mean something, actually. I know that a lot of you are going to be like, oh, you're reading far too much into that, but I would be very surprised if it wasn't intentional. I know how much like thought goes into this kind of stuff. So here is a moment of fire and light that Alleria associates with pain and hardship. She sees this as the moment that her and Sylvanas separated. And of course, you know, she feels guilty about that. She feels like maybe she set Sylvanas on her course as well, which she did, indirectly. Yeah, big old shot of a burning tree. I mean, it's not all that subtle, is it?
How can you leave? You would choose the Alliance over Quel'Tha the Loss, our home.
It's not...
Quel'Tha the Loss? Have I been saying it wrong for the last, like, 20 years?
Not just our kingdom at risk. If the Horde
Horse armor cost her $3.99.
isn't beaten back, others will fall. I have to go.
But you're abandoning your family.
I am doing this for our family.
I love how much older Alleria seems than Sylvanas here. Sylvanas absolutely seems like a younger sister, which I really, really appreciate. I would say that this painted frame here, because it's not animated in the same way as the others, this is like bizarrely more reminiscent of one of the 2.5D cinematics, this frame here. Why is she riding a horse and not a Hawkstrider? Because she's going to join the Alliance, dude. They wouldn't know what to do with a Hawkstrider. She'd be like, yo, can I put my Hawkstrider in your stables? And they're like, yeah, but it'll die. What do we feed it? When in Rome, dude. This is very reminiscent of Sylvanas confronting Arthas, and it is that kind of echo, once again, of how in leaving Sylvanas to become Ranger General, she is leaving her to confront Arthas. That's one of the big guilts that Alleria must feel, you know. She left as Ranger General, and she disappeared, and in that time, her sister, doing her job, had to face, like, the actual biggest evil that had to be faced, and died, you know? So yeah, you're right, this shot is very reminiscent of Sylvanas, or you could say foreshadowing, I guess, of Sylvanas facing off against Arthas. The composition here, I think, is also reminiscent of the Warcraft 3, I want to say, title screen. One sec. The composition of like the way the sword sticks out there, you know, because of course it's Warcraft 3 where the fight that they are foreshadowing happens. Hazelnutty, how awesome to have you raid. Thank you. We're just doing a cinematic analysis. It's not a very clever one, unfortunately, because it's far too late. I should be in bed, but it is what it is, right? Thank you for being here. Yeah. So yeah, I think I mean, can you see the angles that things are sticking out here? I think it's meant to suggest the Warcraft 3 title screen. So lots of foreshadowing of the decision that Alleria is taking here, condemning Sylvanas to face Arthas later on, right? So she set it up at the beginning as being like, when I look at light, all I feel is pain. And we've seen the first example of that, you know, the burning of the forest when she was fighting alongside Sylvanas, how she associates that with the burning of the bridge between her and Sylvanas and the separation of them as sisters and as colleagues and as comrades, right? So there's number one. I think I'm doing pretty well for like making this shit up as I go along, right?
Lost a sister that day. Had I known that my actions would curse Sylvanas to her fate,
yeah, okay. She says it explicitly. Like everything that I just kind of like deduced there. She says it explicitly, so that's nice as well, isn't it?
Had I known
yeah, so this is a representation of how Alleria literally can't think back to those memories without associating them with Banshee Sylvanas.
My actions would curse Sylvanas to her fate.
Lovely sound direction there, like the music in the background and the scream and shit, just great. They use that music in Sylvanas Warbringer, yeah, you're right.
Would I have chosen differently?
So this is a holding form for this cinematic as well, is her asking, you know, if I had known what was going to happen, would I have done it different? I love the way she sees herself as being the one that cursed Sylvanas. And this is where we see her starting to lay down her old armor as well. Because as we know, the main reason for this cinematic, for this animation, is to see her cool new anime armor. So with each memory where she's thinking, could I have done things differently? She is removing a part of her old self, right? Removing the gear, the armor that we and everyone else associates with her. She's literally like shedding a skin, right? Like shedding her old persona, and we'll see that she's putting on a new one, yeah. It would be really good if when she put it on, the achievement came up like, you know, War Within Epic or whatever.
I left my home to fight this war to the end. I had no idea how far away that fight would take me. Yet despite the war, I found my life's true love, Turalyon.
I just love that shot for that shot's sake. It's just so great. He is so thick. I love that for him. He's so great. How can you even... There's literally nothing wrong with this shot. It's so perfect. Absolute himbo energy, yeah.
And together we fought side by side until we...
That's so great. I love the way... obviously, the way the explosion happens in the middle of them here is just a really
together
cool effect.
We fought side by side.
you know? But again, also, right, it was the visual language that they used to show the separation between her and Sylvanas. So yeah, it's kind of showing like, it's kind of like a goofy cartoon thing of like, there's literal fireworks in between them, you know, and then we looked at each other and there was an explosion. It's like instant attraction sort of thing, right? But also it is foreshadowing of the future as well, because we've just been told, don't forget, at the beginning of this cinematic that whenever she thinks of light, she thinks of pain. So don't forget, everything we see in this cinematic that isn't her around the fire is her memory. And you remember things differently sometimes from now, how they happened, or you remember some things as being more important or more exaggerated than they were. And the fact that she's just told us when she sees light, it makes her think of pain. So the fact that they've put an explosion at this moment, which is representative of them like falling in love. The idea that she thinks back to falling in love with Turalyon and everything that came next is like pain in her memory. That's what this is telling you. So this is like second war shit, right? That's happening right here.
Until we became three. But beyond the boundaries of our world.
So, like, we're into a bit of the story here where there is some major time skipping going on, okay? We're on a roller coaster ride. So this is the son of Varisa's here as well.
Our enemies grew powerful.
You can make your stand here. Why risk marching into the unknown?
Our only choice is to take the fight to them before it's too late. Should we not succeed?
I will keep him safe. Just come.
Yeah, the shoulders and the white hair identify Varisa. And make the most of this, because this is the most you can see of her all expansion.
Back.
We'll return before you know it, Arator.
Untrue. But doesn't he look nice, though? He's a baby. He's a half-elf baby. I love that. Love that for him. And look, it's kind of cheap, that shot, but I like it. He's been gripping onto her hood the entire scene so far, and Varisa has to literally pull him away from his mother, and when the grip is broken, in between them is the portal, which will, obviously is light, so associated with pain for Alleria, like we've been told. And yeah, again, that light symbolically coming in between them, as it will for her for 1,000 years. Not that you'd get that from watching this cinematic, of course, because that is not explained, and I think that's probably just as well. There's some shit we do not have to go into. We don't have to go into the whole 1,000-year thing. That's fine. I'm glad we don't bother with that.
Had I known that I would not see my son again until he was a man himself, would I have still left?
So that's question number 2. We've had, if I'd known that I was cursing Sylvanas to her fate, would I have done things differently? If I'd known that I wouldn't have seen my son again for her for 1,000 years, would I have left? And the thing is, I think rhetorically, I think the answer to all these questions is yes. I think the tragedy of Alleria is that she's asking it, and it's kind of suggesting like, oh, maybe I would do things differently, but she wouldn't, though. Or maybe you think she would. I don't know. I think if there's something, when she says, would I have done things differently? I'll get to this. I think there is something she would have done differently, but we'll get to that at the end. Don't worry. I do have a plan. I might be making this shit up in the moment, but I do have a plan in my tiny little brain. So yeah, there's always the presence of light, always the presence of fire. I thought we might get a boning scene between her and Turalyon at this point, actually, but no, it is just more shedding of her armor. And of course, she gives this entire monologue, and she's having these memories, obviously, as she's looking into the fire. So, the light is bringing back these bad memories that she associates. Each of these bad memories is associated with an explosion, or fire, or light, or the light from the portal, or something like that. And so it's looking into the fire that's kind of helping bring all this stuff back, right? And yeah, she does look very vulnerable. But it is very symbolically kind of removing her old self
I had given everything for this fight. The only thing left to
So
give.
this is great. This is a massive time skip because we're on Argus now. And this bit that we're about to see is covered in the 1,000 Years of War.
Was myself.
It's a short story, but I like to think of it as a radio play because that's how I listen to it.
There was no other way.
Hello, future Taliesin again. So for this bit, I did actually go back and reread the whole of 1,000 Years of War before bed. And this is actually the first time that she really uses the void in that story. In the text, she does actually blast a couple of these demons with the light before realizing that that's not enough, letting down her internal defenses to the shadow that has been whispering to her at that point and really just letting go. In the story, she only opens a portal. It's very cool that she also kills a bunch of demons in a really scary way in this one as well. For those interested, it's not until after this moment that she goes hunting for Locust Walker. I know that's something that was a big point of discussion on the stream.
In order to defeat the darkness, I had to embrace it.
Obvious mirrors to Sylvanas doing her Banshee screen in BFA here.
So embrace it, I did.
Especially that shot. I mean, that's Sylvanas for days, isn't it? That's just the opening of Akira right there. That's very cool.
But at what cost? Turalyon, who had known me, loved me, fought beside me.
That's a great shot, isn't it? The horror in Himbo's face as he's pulled through the portal. Like it's like the darkness, the shadow is saving me, but I hate the shadow.
Loved me, fought beside me. Now saw
So they're in Telgaris Rift right here, which is awesome.
me differently.
What have you done?
And this
The
is
shadow.
like straight from the
It saved
novel,
us.
from the short story.
Oh,
Like the obviously very physical kind of repellence between Turalyon's light and Alleria's shadow. And you know, this is not something that's exaggerated. This is something that is being shown exactly as it happened, right?
I would rather have died than see you fall to evil.
Turalyon didn't understand, but I could not fault him.
Obviously, they are on much better terms now, and they still are husband and wife, and they have fought together in Argus, of course, in Legion, and they hang out together. They do reconcile. Alleria, though, does spend a lot of time away, and Turalyon kind of accepts that. They have a very awkward relationship. We see that in, is it Whispers of War, the short story? But I always do find it funny when people talk about the zealotry of the light and how Turalyon is like a light zealot and is going to be a baddie and lead the Alliance to kind of want to kill everyone because she's so into the light, right? He's so into the light and that's so evil. But actually, Turalyon is like really chill when it comes to all of Alleria's like void shit. He's like incredibly shocked by it at first, but he's the one that is like, hey, it's okay. You know, I trust you to control this and it's all good. Apart from with the death of Zera. Yeah, he just saw someone murder his friend and he was pretty pissed off about it. I don't think that makes him a zealot. Like if you just taken someone to see your friend and they murdered them, you'd probably be pissed off as well. And he goes to strike Illidan, and Illidan stops the sword, and that's the end of the fight. He doesn't like, you know, he's like, no, we've got to do this thing. And considering Turalyon had just seen his friend and mentor and also literal god be murdered, he sees the greater good, and he works with Illidan instantly. So I don't see how that's zealotry. I don't see how that's like zealoty or like blinded or blinkered or anything. He's like super chill.
If I had known that embracing the shadow would push him...
Look, He's sad because he's losing his wife. And yet another shot. Have you noticed how it's always Alleria walking away from people here? She knows it. It's always her walking away. Yeah, he is a real man showing emotion. Those Andrew Tate videos popped up in his feed and he did not click.
Him away. Would I have sought another path?
And there is question number 3.
If I had known that embracing the shadow would push him away, would I have sought another path?
And again, the answer is yes, isn't it? Or no, she would not have sought another path. The answer is no. The answer is no in this case. And that's the thing. These questions are all rhetorical. If I'd known that I wouldn't see Arator again until he was a man, would I have still gone? Yeah, man, you thought you were going to die. Like, you didn't think you were ever going to see Arator again. If I knew that I was cursing Sylvanas to her fate.
Would I have chosen differently?
No, like, I mean, you know you're cursing her to her fate, whatever that fate would be. You just don't know what her fate is at that point. That's all. You know, we've been seeing all these memories of how the light causes pain in her memories. You know, there's always some like fire or light or something in these memories of the 3 moments of her life where she has taken a path and made a decision and walked away from love and from happiness and made a sacrifice. But also, you know, that sacrifice that she's made, she's also been making a sacrifice on behalf of someone else. You know, she made a sacrifice that was bad for Sylvanas as well. Like, Sylvanas was involved in that sacrifice as well. She made a sacrifice, but Arator grew up without parents because of that sacrifice. She made a sacrifice and walked away from her husband, but of course, you know, there are other people that suffer from that as well. Like, all these decisions that she makes, it's not just her suffering. And now, very symbolically, she's literally turned her back to the light and is facing into the shadow of this space that we see here in. It's very obvious, but like, yeah. It's very cool that we're seeing her,
all of the things
in time for the War Within. Some very good like anime armor clicking, and dude, you love to see anime armor clicking. I'm all over that.
I did for a reason.
So this is Argus. We reminded her about Argus when we went there with her during questing for the Harbinger quests. She remembered some transmog she hadn't collected from Argus yet. So she goes back to go and farm for a bit. Makes perfect sense. This is like, she walks away at the end of that quest line. And so this is happening after the Harbinger quests. But she's obviously gone back to Argus. And don't forget, this is where, in Makari, they've changed the name now, haven't they? So she's gone back to Eridath because that's where she was shown the memories. It's almost like she's gone back to properly face the memories herself now. Oh, I think that's quite nice, actually. That's cool. Yeah, and just to clear up and get a new transmog. Yeah, exactly. She just needs somewhere to change. Yeah, totally. Bye.
War is sacrifice. And I have sacrificed everything to protect those I love. To keep them safe. And if it takes sacrificing myself to protect our world, I will not hesitate. I am a soldier of Azeroth.
I think it's lovely. I think it's really cool. I love how heroic it is, but also you can't get away from the fact that, you know, her sacrifices, and this is shown kind of explicitly in these little shots here. She's saying she's keeping everyone safe, and I mean, she did save Azeroth, but so did the Sons of Arator in general, right? Sons of Lothar, I should say. Did I say that? I meant Sons of Lothar. Yeah, very reminiscent of the Illidan Warbringer, Harbinger. This shot here, another guy that likes going on about sacrifice. And grown-up Arator looking on. Because we know he visits the statue a lot when he's a kid, but I like showing us grown-up Arator doing it as well. I cannot wait to see Arator's new model in Midnight. It's gonna be so cool. Yeah, I know people aren't a fan of her armor. It's very anime, isn't it? I don't mind it. I think it looks pretty cool in game. I don't think it is as iconic as her as her old armor. But it's like symbolically just putting on a new skin, a new thing, you know, like finally letting go of all the things from her past that she would feel guilty about, or, you know, that would be holding her back in her mind, right? And creating a whole new slate. Like, it's kind of like, you know, burning old photos of your ex or whatever. It's very symbolic, but I'm not sure if it works. Put it that way. I guess we'll have to see. But I love that cinematic. I think it's really cool. I think it's great as a refresher for who burns old photos of their ex? Well, no one really, but you see it in like TV shows and stuff. It's like a recognizable trope of someone kind of like getting over a relationship and moving on and stuff like that, is burning photos of their ex. Like, don't tell me you've never seen that in a TV show or movie, right? Yeah, exactly. I think this costume change is great for her because she's finally got the pauldron on the correct shoulder. Like, I feel like her archery is going to improve no end now that she's wearing the pauldron on the correct shoulder. I think, you know, she's gonna be like, my aim has really improved now I'm not wearing the pauldron on my casting like hand. Wow, archery's way easier than I remember. So yeah, I think I really like the structure of this. I really like, I mean, the voice acting and it does a great job of reminding you of where we're at in the story. So I do think she would do something different. I think, you know, the tragedy of this cinematic is very much like, you know, if I'd known the bad thing that was going to happen to this other person, would I have done things differently? You know, if I'd known that walking away and being a badass and joining the Alliance was going to condemn Sylvanas to being killed by the Lich King and raised as a Banshee, would I have still done it? And the implied answer, the rhetoric answer, is yes. If I'd known that I wasn't going to see Arator again until he was a man, would I have gone? Yes, is the implied answer. If I'd known that embracing the shadow was going to push Turalyon away, would I have still done it? Yeah, is the implied answer. However, I think her changing into this armor and, you know, the very symbolically turning her back on the light, very much so in this, and the way she is now well and truly like a shadow ranger, right? I think there is something she would do differently. If she could go back and have her time again, I think she would embrace the shadow sooner. I think there's a part of her which is like, I had no choice but to walk away and condemn Sylvanas to her fate. But if I'd already embraced the shadow at that point, maybe I could have saved her. I had no choice but to walk away and leave my son without a mother to save Azeroth. But if I'd already embraced the shadow at that point, maybe we could have got it done and been back in time for tea. I had to walk away and go and study the Void and become an amazing at the Void. So I had to walk away from Turalyon and you know, but I if he'd seen the power that I could get and that I have now, would that have been an easier conversation? Yeah. I think that's the change she would make. She looks back and she goes, all these sacrifices I made hurt people apart from me. But if only I had this power, if only I had faced my destiny sooner, maybe I could have avoided this. Now, whether that's correct thinking from her or whether that's whispers kind of having an effect, who knows? Usually the if I only had more power, I could have saved them all trope is something that happens to villains. That's not often something you hear like a hero say. You don't often hear like the goody in a movie or video game or narrative go, if only I had more of this dark power, I could have saved them all. It's not the kind of thing Superman says, right? That's the kind of shit a baddie says. But I don't know. Maybe now I am reaching, but that's kind of the thought I get from watching this. I think there's maximum one Windrunner sister left on this earth after midnight, put it that way. You know, they show lots of parallels to Sylvanas in this cinematic, but I think the most telling shot, probably my favorite shot in the cinematic, is this one. Because this is definitely foreshadowing Sylvanas's confrontation with Arthas, like we said before. But I think in the decisions that she makes, Alleria has much more in common with Arthas than she does Sylvanas. Sylvanas gets turned into a monster, but she's literally mind controlled until she's just a ruined, damaged individual. Then she makes her own decisions, but she goes through like the most traumatic thing you could probably ever possibly go through. And she's made to do the worst things you can imagine against her will, but being conscious the entire thing. Arthas is not the same as Sylvanas. Arthas made the decisions that led to him becoming what he became. She makes a conscious decision every time that, yes, is a sacrifice on her part, but also damages other people and leads her to this place where she is now warrior of the void, a ranger of the void. Now, that could turn out to be a really, really good thing. All she has to do is basically be the first person ever to embrace the void and not fall to it. Well, who's the first? Who's the first? You say she's the second. Who's the first? Yeah, I knew you were going to say Locust Walker. That dude definitely hasn't fallen to the void. The dude who basically forced her to take on the void or die. Yeah, that's not something that someone who works for the void does, is it? Lothraxion said he hadn't fallen. Well, if the Dreadlord said it, I can win this argument by saying Locust Walker isn't a person, which is technically correct. The best way of being correct. But just the record, I don't believe Alleria is going to get hit by the baddie bat, okay? I don't think she's going to get hit by the antagonist bat. I think she's going to be a goodie. For the record, I think Locust Walker is going to be a goodie as well. I don't think he's going to turn out to be a big baddie. I'm just joking around. I'm just being silly. But who knows? I don't know what's going to happen. I never care if I'm wrong. Like when it comes to the story and stuff in any predictions or speculation I have. It's just banter. I actually don't think Alleria is going to end up falling to the void. Or if she does, it's going to be in like the last seconds of her story in Midnight and she'll overcome it and like, you know, sacrifice herself and everything will be good. Don't worry. It would be surprising if they made a cinematic about all of the sacrifices that Alleria has made to get to this point if there weren't any more sacrifices to be made. Obviously, by far the most striking thing about the cinematic is the animation style. I love this for WoW. What I wouldn't like to see is, I wouldn't like to see this replace the 2.5D cinematics, to be honest. But as like another thing that WoW does, I think this is great. But I loved it. What would be the next one? If there was another one, Thrall, I reckon. Yeah, Anduin or Thrall.